My name is Chloe. My brother Alex was my best friend for my entire life. We were only 2 years apart. We built forts together, fought over the remote, and promised we would always be there for each other. That all changed when he met Danielle. She was beautiful and smart, but she was also very controlling. Slowly, Alex started to fade away. Our weekly coffee meets became monthly, then never. His texts got shorter. His excuses got longer. I felt like I was losing him, piece by piece. The week of his wedding, I still had not received an invitation. My heart felt heavy with a cold dread. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. I knew then, in my gut, that something was terribly wrong. I just didn't know how painful the truth would be. 3 days before the wedding, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I drove to his apartment. I needed to hear it from him directly. I found him packing a suitcase for his honeymoon. He looked surprised to see me, then guilty. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Chloe, now isn't a good time," he said, his voice tight. "I just need to know, Alex," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Am I invited to your wedding?" He froze, his hands clutching a folded shirt. The silence in the room was louder than any noise. He finally looked at me, and his expression was full of pain. "I'm so sorry, Chloe," he said. "You can't come. Danielle, she doesn't think you're a good influence. She doesn't want you there." The words hit me like a physical blow. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. "She doesn't want me there?" I repeated, stunned. "Alex, I'm your sister. Your only sister." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I know. But she thinks you're trying to come between us. You criticize her, you make comments about our relationship." "I was worried about you." I cried. "You disappeared. What was I supposed to do?" "You were supposed to be happy for me," he shot back. We stood there, staring at each other, the chasm between us wider than ever. The little brother I taught to ride a bike was choosing his new wife over his own family. Over me. I left his apartment in a daze. The world outside seemed too bright, too normal. People were laughing and going about their days. My world had just shattered. I drove home, tears blurring my vision. I felt a deep, profound loss. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was about the end of our friendship, the death of our bond. I spent the next 2 days in a fog of sadness and anger. The wedding day arrived. I sat in my living room, imagining the ceremony happening across town. I pictured my brother standing at the altar, my parents in the front row, and an empty space where I should have been. The hurt was a sharp, constant ache in my chest. That evening, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my cousin, Maya. She had gone to the wedding. "Thinking of you," her message said. Below it was a photo. It was of Alex and Danielle at the altar, kissing. They looked happy. But that's not what made my blood run cold. In the background, clearly visible, was my grandmother. She was sitting in her wheelchair, a small, confused smile on her face. My grandmother, who had advanced dementia, who lived in a specialized care facility an hour away. They had brought my sick, confused grandmother to the wedding, but they hadn't invited me. The pain turned into something else. Something cold and hard. Something like rage. I stared at that photo for a long time. All I could see was my grandmother's face. They had taken her from her familiar surroundings, dressed her up, and put her on display, probably confusing and frightening her. Why? To look good? To pretend they were a perfect, loving family? They used her as a prop. And they had excluded me, the person who visited her every single week, who read to her, who held her hand when she didn't know who I was. The injustice of it burned through my sadness. I couldn't just sit there and accept this. I had to do something. But what? A protest felt weak. I needed to make a point they would never forget. An idea began to form in my mind. It was risky, and it would change everything forever. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt right. Our grandfather, who had passed away, had been a brilliant, kind man. He was a history professor who adored us both. He left me something very specific in his will. It was an old, leather-bound journal. He told me it was his life's work, but it just looked like a bunch of old notes and sketches to everyone else. My parents and Alex had always thought it was sentimental junk. I knew it was more. I went to my closet and pulled the heavy journal from its box. It was time to find out what it was really worth. I spent the entire night reading through Grandpa's journal. It was filled with complex notes and beautiful, detailed drawings of artifacts. He had been an expert on ancient Mediterranean history. Near the end of the journal, I found a section that made my heart stop. It was a detailed sketch of a small, ornate box. He called it the Lycos casket. According to his notes, it was a rare artifact from a forgotten Greek settlement, made of solid gold and inlaid with precious gems. He believed it was lost to time. But his final entry was different. It was a single, triumphant sentence. Found it. The records were correct. It's here. He had drawn a small, simple map. The map led to a location just a few hours from our city. It was a storage facility. Grandpa had left me the key to his unit in the journal's front pocket. I had never used it. The next morning, I drove there, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I found Unit 217. The key turned smoothly in the lock. I pulled up the heavy door. The unit was mostly empty, except for a few dusty boxes and one large object covered by a cloth. I held my breath and pulled the cloth away. Underneath was the casket. It was even more stunning than the drawing. It glowed softly in the dim light. It was real. And it was mine. I carefully took the casket back to my apartment. I needed to know its value. I remembered my grandpa talking about his friend, an expert named Arthur Pendleton. I found his contact information online. He was a renowned appraiser for a famous auction house. I emailed him photos, explaining who I was and who my grandfather was. He replied within an hour. His email was short and urgent. That is a remarkably preserved piece. Do not clean it. Do not show anyone else. I am flying to you tomorrow. This is extremely important. I stared at the casket, my mind reeling. This was bigger than I had imagined. Mr. Pendleton arrived at my apartment the next day. He was an older man with sharp, intelligent eyes. He examined the casket for a long time, using a magnifying glass and a small light. He was silent, his face unreadable. Finally, he looked at me. "Your grandfather was a brilliant man," he said, his voice full of awe. "This is the Lycos casket. The academic world thought it was a myth. Its historical value is immeasurable." I swallowed hard. And its monetary value? He took a deep breath. At a conservative, private auction, I would estimate between $8 and $10 million. I sat down heavily. $10 million. The number echoed in my head. $10 million. I was a graphic designer living paycheck to paycheck. This was life-changing. Mr. Pendleton explained the process of a silent, high-profile auction. It would take a few weeks to arrange. He left with a signed agreement and promises of discretion. I was alone again with the casket and my thoughts. My plan was now in motion. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I wasn't going to confront Alex. I wasn't going to yell or cry. I was going to live my best life, and I was going to make sure he saw every second of it from the outside. The first thing I did was quit my job. My boss was shocked, but I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. I used a small bit of my savings to hire a social media manager, a sharp young woman named Zoe. I told her my goal, to create a brand around unexpected luxury and adventure. I didn't tell her about the casket or my brother. I just gave her a budget and told her to make my life look incredible. She helped me set up profiles on all the platforms with a new catchy name, The Gilded Journey. We were ready to begin. The posts started subtly. A picture of me enjoying a ridiculously expensive coffee at a fancy cafe. A photo of my feet propped up on a first-class airline seat. A stunning sunset from a luxury resort's infinity pool. The captions were light and happy. Living life on my own terms. And gratitude is the best attitude. I made sure my profile was public. I knew Alex and Danielle would see it. My phone started buzzing. First, it was my mom. "Chloe, are you okay? Where are you?" Then my dad. "Sweetie, what's going on? That looks expensive." I replied politely, saying I was just treating myself after a hard time. A week later, I got the first direct message from Alex. "Chloe, what is all this? Where did you get the money for this?" I didn't reply. Let him wonder. Let him worry. The posts continued. Zoe had me doing a photo shoot on a private yacht we rented for an hour. Another post showed me learning to ski in the Alps. The comments on my posts exploded. People were fascinated. Who is this woman? Goals. How can I live this life? My follower count skyrocketed. In the middle of all this, Mr. Pendleton called. The auction was set. The top bidders were very, very interested. The day of the auction arrived. It was held in a secure, private room in a grand hotel. I wore a simple, elegant black dress. I felt a calm confidence. There were 5 bidders, all represented by serious-looking people. The bidding started high and climbed quickly. My heart pounded with each number. When the auctioneer finally slammed his gavel, the room was silent. The winning bid was $12 million. I had to steady myself against the table. 12 million. After fees and taxes, I would still be set for life. I signed the final papers in a happy daze. It was done. With the money secure in my bank account, the Gilded Journey went into overdrive. I bought a beautiful, modern apartment with a stunning city view. I posted a video of the housewarming party, filled with new friends and laughter. I donated a large sum to my grandmother's care facility, ensuring she would have the best of everything for the rest of her life. I did not donate in my family's name, only in mine and my grandfather's. I knew this would get back to them. My life was now full of light, success, and generosity. The shadow of the wedding felt like a distant, bad dream. The direct messages from Alex became more desperate. "Chloe, please talk to me. I'm worried about you. Are you in some kind of trouble?" Danielle even tried to call me once. I sent her to voicemail. They were curious. They were probably also jealous. That was the point. I wanted them to see what they had pushed away. I wanted them to see the sister and daughter who was capable of amazing things without them. My parents, however, were different. They kept asking to see me, their messages full of genuine concern. I decided it was time to talk to them. I invited them to my new apartment for dinner. My parents arrived, looking nervous and out of place in my sleek building. I gave them a tour. Their eyes were wide with shock. "Chloe, this is incredible," my mom said. "But how? Please tell us you're safe." We sat down, and I told them everything. I told them about Grandpa's journal, the casket, the auction, and the $12 million. I also told them about the photo from the wedding, and how seeing Grandma there had broken my heart. "Why was she there, but I wasn't?" I asked, my voice quiet. My mom started to cry. "It was Danielle's idea," my dad said softly. "She said it would look bad if we didn't. We were wrong.
We are so sorry, Chloe.
My parents' apology felt real. They had been swayed by Danielle's pressure and the desire for a perfect day. We talked for hours, rebuilding our trust. They promised to support me, no matter what. It felt good to have them back on my side. A few days later, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. It was Alex. He was alone, and he looked terrible. His shoulders were slumped, and his eyes were red. I took a deep breath and opened the door. He looked at me, and then passed me into my beautiful apartment. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice ragged. "Please." I let him in. He didn't sit down. He just stood there, looking lost. "I've made the biggest mistake of my life," he began, his voice cracking. "Danielle. She controlled everything. She isolated me from you, from my friends.
She said you were a threat to our marriage."
I listened, my arms crossed. "Seeing your life, it woke me up," he continued. "I asked her about the wedding, why she was so against you. She finally admitted it. She was jealous. Jealous of our bond.
She was afraid I would always choose you over her."
He started to cry. And I did the one thing that proved I wouldn't. I chose her.
"I lost you."
His tears were real. The pain in his voice was the same pain I had felt. The angry wall around my heart began to crumble. This was my brother. The boy who shared my childhood.
"The marriage is a disaster, Chloe," he sobbed.
"It's been a month, and we're already in counseling. She's furious about your success. She talks about it constantly. It's all about the money for her.
She can't stand that you have it."
He finally looked at me, his face full of shame. "I am so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know that I know I ruined everything.
I lost my best friend."
I didn't say anything for a long moment. I looked at my brother, truly broken and sorry. The revenge I had wanted so badly suddenly felt empty. Having all the money in the world didn't feel as good as the idea of having my brother back. "You hurt me more than anyone ever has," I said softly.
"But you're still my brother."
I walked over and hugged him. He held on to me tightly, like he was a little kid again. We cried together for everything we had lost and for the chance to find it again. The fancy apartment and the money didn't matter in that moment. This was the real treasure. Alex moved out of the apartment he shared with Danielle. Their marriage was annulled. It turned out she had a history of this kind of controlling behavior. My family was whole again, but different. Stronger. More honest. We started having family dinners every Sunday, and my grandmother was always there, brought from her home where she was most comfortable. I used my money to start a foundation in my grandfather's name, funding history education for kids. My gilded journey, social media changed, too. It became about finding real treasure, family, forgiveness, and second chances. One evening, Alex and I were at my apartment, looking at old photo albums. We came across a picture of us with Grandpa. We were maybe 10 and 8, sitting on his lap, listening to one of his stories. "He would be so proud of you," Alex said. "Not for the money. For being brave. For teaching me what really matters." I smiled. The brother who had shut me out was now my best friend again. The wedding that had broken my heart was the event that ultimately forced us to rebuild our family on a foundation of truth and love. And for that, in a strange way, I was finally grateful. If you've made it this far, you understand my story wasn't just about a wedding invite. It was about respect. My worth was never defined by my place on my brother's seating chart or by my family's silence. I was gaslit into believing I was the problem, that I was difficult. But my silence became my weapon, and my patience my power. I turned my humiliation into a triumph they could never ignore. My story proves that your boundaries don't make you difficult. Your survival makes you extraordinary. Your worth was never in question. It was only waiting for you to remember it. Have you had to prove your worth to your family? Share your story below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.